I'm an award-winning screenwriter, and I've also self-published my own novel. If you want to complain about its quality, then I have a playlist that you can critique. And before I start critiquing Gameoverse, let me just say that it is a good show. While I think there are some big and obvious problems that people have pointed out, I feel like these are mostly down to what I'd argue are just a bunch of draft issues that can be hammered out. Aside from when it does a dream sequence into exposition. That is legitimately bad writing. My focus today, however, is on its premise. In short, Kit and Caboodle lost their world because they completed their game. Because they completed their world no longer has any purpose for the player, and I suppose the best example would be that the game is uninstalled because it's taking up storage space that could be used for something else, though that is only an analogy. Regardless, in order to prevent other worlds from facing this same fate, Kit and Caboodle team up with Dusk and the Farcade organization in order to prevent game worlds from being completed. Of course, there are also the villains of the series, Syntax, who want to collect this game completion energy, otherwise known as float, to eventually rewrite the rules of the universe. And, well, I've played this game before.
A great day dawns. A new end. And a new beginning. I have atoned. And they have returned. This is victory. This is justice.
Endless Space 2's Academy questline is about Isyander, commander of the definitely not UN, concocting a plan to use the stock market to reset the entire Endless universe and resurrect an old god known as the Lost. Which is fair enough because I'm going to nuke his son. I could also talk about Zephon, where after you deal with the walking pregnant battleships and the live laugh love Kaijus, you come face to face with a faceless eldritch entity who can only afford to answer one question before they reset everything again. However, both these titles are hardcore sci-fi 4X games where everything is zero-sum systems gameplay, something that really doesn't translate to good character writing. This is why these people are commonly the bad guys in TV shows, because they have goals which fundamentally crush others beneath them, and that's not very nice.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Of course, it's also become very difficult to write good guys as well, as our socio-economic conditions have caught us in a deadlock where even those willing to do anything to save their own can only afford to survive. This fatalism is arguably where a lot of edgy content like The Amazing Digital Circus has thrived. However, I'm quite cautious about the culture pendulum swinging the opposite direction, where things have become so dire that the only entertainment people will want is trash.
I already am eating from the trash can all the time. The name of this trash can is ideology.
If you want even more philosophy, TADC is about techno-feudalism and Gameoverse seems to be about anti-accelerationism. Syntax are very interesting philosophically, but when Farcade has nothing but a trauma-backed reactionary religiosity, then it's not going to get very far. This is all to say that Gameoverse can't be the next Horus Heresy series. So let me instead pitch an alternate take that flips the core premise, increases the emotional stakes, implements a more natural ludo-narrative, and allows for retracing steps that you'd otherwise lose every episode. With that in mind, let's start with Kit and Caboodle. At the start of the pilot, Kit and Caboodle are getting ready to beat the next boss and acquire more of Caboodle's kind. Basing them around Ratchet and Clank, there's some crazy robotic overlord who wants to crush planets together in order to create a new one, with Caboodle and his kind being a necessary piece of that plan. When reaching this next boss fight, however, the quest item is stolen by Misinformation and Fold. These two have appeared as background characters to Kit and Caboodle, providing useful tips on occasion only to betray them in the end. This promises a rivalry scenario, and who doesn't love a rivalry scenario? Then Misinformation and Fold are extracted off-world alongside the quest item right in front of Kit, breaking the fourth wall and exposing Kit's game to the narrative void. Because this quest item has been removed, the world just stops. Not destroyed, just stopped. In the current design, the completion of a world means that there is no going back, but there's also no going back. There's no hope of returning, so you just have to accept this and move forward. Because there is now a way back, that desire can be woven throughout the story as a motivation, something the pilot lacks. This is when Dusk shows up. As a member of Farcade, Dusk has a different way of doing things than Warwick. Instead of an imperial acquisition of powerful items, Dusk wants to preserve items on the game world, while also connecting these game worlds together to defend against Syntax should they try to come back again. This time, however, Dusk was too late. Because Kit can no longer continue her quest, the robot overlord's mech destroys the village and everyone Kit knew. and she blames Dusk for this, but Dusk merely reaches out his hand and offers her the chance to take back what was taken from her. Because a stolen item can be stolen back, this would allow Kit to win back items by either defeating Syntax enemies, or finding Syntax vaults to infiltrate. Kit takes Dusk's hand, and we move forward. In the pilot, we get a "that dream again" moment, followed by an exposition dump. This is arguably the worst moment in the pilot, so instead of a wake-up, we just have a smash cut to a loading screen with Kit's ship at the front as the warp travel of the game-oververse. Inside, Kit is moaning about how long it's been since then, wondering if she'll ever make it back in time before the corporate overlord rules the world. Caboodle responds that they should try to make this one short then, as everything they can do faster will get them back to beating their own game. Anyway, Kit and Caboodle are talking about this world, where all they really know is the Wikipedia entry of the game, alongside its major quest item, in this case being the sea crown on Snapper's head, which grants +10 intelligence. Kit tries to get Gobbles interested in the quest item since Gobbles is all about intellectual things, but Gobbles just shrugs because he already has 25 int and high int scaling, so he doesn't need the sea crown. When they arrive, Caboodle scans the game world for forced entry by Syntax, and it turns out that a ship has actually pierced its atmosphere. Kit quickly decides that they need to go planet-side in order to stop Syntax before it's too late. As they reach the village checkpoint, it turns out that Fold and Misinformation have already made contact with Flappers and are rapidly progressing through the campaign with him. Fold and MI assert that Flappers doesn't need to listen to them because they'd just slow him down. After realizing that they can't break through the fourth wall to explain things to Flappers, Kit and Co are unable to get through and change Flappers' mind, especially when he's so stupid that he just goes with what other people have already told him. Meanwhile, Gobbles has been doing some research. Turns out that Flappers' campaign would take him east around the world, when actually he'd only need to go across a mountain range to the west in order to reach Snapper's lava castle. So that's what Kit and Co try to do. While they climb the mountain, Fold and MI have been turning off the traps and sabotaging bosses in Flappers' way, thus making it much easier for him to progress. However, Flappers isn't learning mechanics, such as how lava works. Anyway, as Kit and Co reach Snapper's castle, they manage to talk to Snapper briefly. Since the sea crown grants +10 intelligence, and Snapper only has 1 int, so if he lost the sea crown then he wouldn't be able to control this kingdom and he'd wind up as stupid as Flappers, who also has 1 intelligence. Kit, however, has heard enough and believes that at least Flappers won't eat people, something that Snappers definitely hasn't done, and decides that they need to defeat Snappers before Flappers arrives so that she can prevent Syntax from stealing it. As Kit is on a time schedule here, she uses her Kibble Star Cannon to one-shot Snappers, take the sea crown, and do a victory pose, right in front of Flappers, Fold and MI. Flappers, immediately seeing that he can win the game with the sea crown, rushes in and gets turned into a fish stick by a falling lava flow because he didn't learn the mechanic. With Flappers and Snappers out of the way, Farcade and Syntax can fight over the sea crown, except since Kit used her Star Kit cannon earlier, she can't use it against Syntax. Halfway through the fight, Flappers returns again, sees the sea crown, rushes over to grab it, only to then be turned into a fish stick, again. From here we have 2 different options. Either Flappers' world getting soft-blocked like in the pilot itself, and Flappers joins our heroes on their journey, or the opposite one, where Syntax is defeated, Flappers puts on the sea crown, and signs a treaty with Farcade. And that's the end of my pitch. Let me know what you think in the comments and if you'd like to see more of this in the future.